Okay, welcome. It is August 27th, 6:30 p.m., and this is the Olentangy Board of Education meeting. Mrs. Hatfield, will you please call the roll?
Mr. King,
Present.
Mr. O'Brien,
Here.
Mrs. Patrick,
Here.
Mrs. Wagner-Fiesel,
Here.
Dr. Weiss. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Dr. Wise. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Wagner-Fiesel,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move right into the board president's report. And I would like to take tonight's opportunity to talk about expectations and grace. Today was Olentangy Convocation, and Convocation is the commencement of our school year. It's always exciting as our entire staff comes together in two large groups, our middle and high school staff and then our elementary. It's an amazing event that we as board members get to attend. And as you may guess, this year's convocation looked differently than years past and was in a virtual format. As always, our leadership was very intentional in their messaging, and they brought in a former student, Cameron McCarthy, to speak. I sat watching this year, he was a 2020 Orange graduate, speak with the wisdom and grace of a man 3 times his age. He's a gifted speaker, he's a natural leader, and he left me with hope for the future. Most of all, Mr. McCarthy's speech is a reminder to our educators of the importance of their work. And they will need it, as this year will bring a lot of new challenges. So, hold on, I lost my place. So it was a true pleasure to witness his speech, and I've heard we will be sharing that with the community. It's very much worth watching. After that, we got to see how our staff has rallied together and continues to move the pendulum forward. I'd like to congratulate our teachers and our teacher and employee of the year. I was at home jumping up down when they were announced, and I still got, but what I did miss is the energy and the positivity that comes with this event. It's truly uplifting, and I felt light and energized all day, and I'm so proud to be part of Olentangy Local Schools, and my pride is shining very bright. So let me move on to expectations and grace, and I want to reiterate what I shared at our last board meeting, and that is we all have to adjust our expectations. We have a large community, and as board members, we don't hear from the bulk of the community, but the ones that we do hear from are a loud minority. And I can't emphasize enough that this year will look different, and expectations need to allow for that. My husband asked me this week, what would have happened, what would Olentangy have done if this happened 10 years ago? That's a really interesting thought, because we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the devices, we didn't have, all these platforms that we are able to utilize today. So I'm grateful that it didn't happen 10 years ago. And I think it's important to remember we still will all have a sacrifice in this. And to borrow a quote from Oak Creek principal Julie Lather, we are building this plane as we fly it. I think that's very well said. Did you say that as well? Did she steal that from you?
No.
Well, she said that at Convocation today, and I think that's important to keep in mind. So that's the perfect lead into grace. I was walking on the bike path in my neighborhood, and I ran into Liberty Middle School Teacher of the Year and my son's former history instructor, Danielle Gillespie. And she was her regular, upbeat, positive self, and she shared a few things with me. And one of those being that she was working with her teammate, Jared Mills. He's also an 8th grade instructor at Liberty, and they were collaborating and doing their planning for this upcoming year, and they were brainstorming their intentional words. And their favorite that they landed on was grace. And I think that word needs to be at the front and center of our minds. As this year will look very different, we need to give grace to our teachers as they navigate new technology, heightened anxiety, and reinvent their teaching style. We need to give grace to our students because they're going to log on or walk into an environment that is not what they're used to. We also need to give grace to our parents as they are, they're at the end of their patience rope, and they'll have a larger role in their students' education this year, and their schedules may still not allow for that. And finally, we need to give grace to our administrators because every day they are having to react and adjust to new guidelines that come forward. So I'm a person that loves to be in control. I work in accounting because numbers behave. And I have a special appreciation of the challenge that our schools are facing right now. So anytime I have to be around our staff, I do feel energized and mesmerized by their positivity and their commitment to navigating us forward. So my message to the community is, before you make that social media post, before you send that email, please be cognizant of the changes that are upon us, and remind yourself that you have to adjust your expectations and things will look different. And remind yourself that we all have a sacrifice in this pandemic. Empathy is key. We are students during this. We are our children's role models. And so we really need to be thoughtful in the role that we choose. Our children will learn resiliency from this and important lessons about community. And how we rise to the challenges before us will reflect our true character. So personally, I have cut myself off from negativity, and I continue to choose to spend my time with those that are inspiring, look for solutions, and spread positivity. I feel privileged to be part of the Olentangy family. So updates. I had the pleasure of meeting our new teachers at a luncheon hosted by our Association for New Teacher Academy. That was a true honor, and again, more positivity and as we move forward and excitement. Also, yesterday, I was able, what's today, Thursday? Wednesday, yes, yesterday, Dr. Wise and I were able to sit down with our diversity and inclusion department and get some updates. I hadn't really touched base since our town hall meetings, and there was they kind of compiled all the feedback that they received. And what did come out of that was the development of a leadership advisory committee with 18 individuals that represent various groups in our community. They were selected because of their innovative thoughts and ideas and willingness to partner with Olentangy local schools and make recommendation to the Superintendents Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So it was great. Again, walked away from positive people all about the solution. And we asked how the board can continue to partner in this area and what we can do. And so I'm going to let Dr. Wise talk to that.
All right. So their response to us it was to invite the board members as well as the district leadership team to a couple of opportunities that they have. One is an implicit bias training that's going to be held in November. Don't have the exact date yet, but it is going to be facilitated by Precious Lee Thompson from the Corin Institute. The other was book studies that they're going to be doing, one starting in September, and we can send this information out to you guys. or there's 3 books that they'll be doing studies on, one in September, November, and then February. But that was just ways that we can help and work with them. That's it.
I'm glad they had the opportunity to sit down and talk with us so that we can stay abreast of all that's going on, because there is pretty much a 3 to 5 year plan, and I took a look at that plan. It's pretty dynamic, and I said, well, you know, I've dealt with something like this in the past, and that's a difficult pill to swallow, that we're a society of immediate gratification, and this is issues that need addressed, and we want them addressed and fixed now, but they do take time, and I was so pleased to see that timeline and the initiatives that are being moved forward. So they have a lot of work to do, but I think it will benefit all of us in numerous ways. I think that's about it. I saw we had a facilities committee meeting next week, but maybe it got canceled.
It was canceled just due to all the changes going on.
Okay.
So to try and reflect on that.
And I'll open it up to my colleagues here, but I just want to wish our teachers the best. It's an exciting year. It's going to be a little bit different year. I'm anxious and hopeful for next week. Did you want to say something?
I was going to mention there was an excellent article in This Week this morning about the diversity program.
Oh, there was?
That was excellent.
I
Did
have
you see
not
it?
looked at the paper or news
This week.
this week. Okay. I'm sure you read it, Mrs. Fiesel.
That's what I do first thing in the morning.
Anything else? I know there was some, I don't know, anything about, I did not watch the press conference. I don't,
We'll probably get to those in the presentations that are going to be.
anything else? All right. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our first presentation. Welcome to the podium, Dr. Jack Fetty. He is our Chief Academic Officer, and he will be joined by Jennifer Fury about our committed distance learning. Dr. Fetty.
So good evening. We just wanted to give you a status update of where we are with committed distance learning. It's definitely been a popular topic the past couple of weeks and the past couple of board meetings as well. So I'd like to just walk you through where we are today and where we see ourselves headed in the next couple of weeks. You know, we started 6 weeks ago, which seems not that long ago and also a really long time ago, depending on how you look at it. But we wanted to create a learning environment virtually for students that was an alternate to our traditional attendance models. We had established that we were headed towards the hybrid model and maybe a virtual model if public health numbers dictated, but we wanted a consistent digital model. And we knew that we had Schoology as a platform that we could use for that model. It's been in use in the district since 2011, so we felt like we had the infrastructure. And we had also done a parent survey in June, early June, and on that survey, 12% of our parents said that they were extremely uncomfortable at that moment sending their children back into the school setting. So we knew that there was an audience that was interested in a committed distance learning environment. Around that time, Mr. Rafe said that he wanted to utilize Olentangy teachers to the greatest extent possible in the environment because he wanted it to be an authentic Olentangy experience. So since then, when we first conceived of committed distance learning, we've come a long way. There have been a lot of rapid changes, but those changes have been improvements in every aspect. Once we knew we had a critical mass, we discussed at the last meeting that we could fully utilize Olentangy teachers. We were able to insert their Olentangy teacher curriculum in place of a curriculum from the marketplace. We've also added a number of elective courses at the high school level and the middle school level, accelerated math. We added the world language course, as you recall. And even today, we have identified a few other courses that we'll be adding in the coming days. We met with the high school counselors this morning to share that one of our orchestra music teachers will be able to, has been independently studying a new software that will allow her to conduct virtual music lessons for orchestra, choir, band, which is, you know, I joked a couple of weeks ago at a board meeting that there's certain things, with the amount of time that we have, we just can't rapidly develop enough technology and know-how. And then, you know, Mrs. Bixler went and proved me wrong, that she found a product and felt like she could make it work, and we knew that there's a large number of students in CDL who will benefit from it, so we said, let's do it. So that brings us to today, where we have just under 5,400 students currently enrolled in committed distance learning. We're at just under 5,000 when registration officially closed on August 2nd. But we have been working through the wait list as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. There are still 235 students on the wait list as of today, but we are intending to decrease that number over the next 48 hours, honestly. We cannot admit students until we know we have a space for them. So we have to, there's a process to placing students, and in a typical school building, like just at the elementary level, there are maybe 30 teachers, 4 courses per grade level. Here we have 22 courses per grade level and 3,000 elementary students. So not only admitting them, but making sure that we can meet their special education needs by clustering them appropriately, their gifted needs, 504s. And then we're also obviously experiencing a high volume of parent requests for preferences. And while there might be one Tyler Run teacher and 40 Tyler Run students, just for example, they all can't be in that class because that's too many, and that's upsetting for people. But we are working through that to the best of our ability. Tonight was elementary open house, though, for all of our schools, including CDL. So hopefully people will now shift into that actual school year experience and remember how much fun school can be. We have 223 teachers. Todd, Mr. Meyer explained how we went through that process last meeting. They're representing all of our schools. They've spent the last 2 weeks on learning how to become CDL teachers. So around the time when the registration closed, we realized we needed somebody to have a vision for this endeavor. So I invited Jen Fury to take this on. Jen's just completed her first year with the district, and she reminded me that she kind of got robbed of her first year because, you know, Olentangy is so big, it takes a couple of months to just learn the names of the schools and the principals and the people, and she only got to, you know, feel like she knew where she was for a couple of months before everything shut down. But Jen has a very unique background. She has a great understanding of what quality virtual instruction looks like. She's been a coach of virtual instruction or technology-based instruction for a number of districts. She has spent literally countless hours over the last couple of weeks building this program and also trying her best to keep the parents and the teachers informed of current day-to-day operations. And she's done a great job. I've stolen Mr. Rafe's line when I asked her to do this, that she would certainly feel an unprecedented amount of pressure, but that we would do our best to meet that pressure with the support required to make it a success. And she's well on her way. So I'm going to introduce Jen to you now to talk about what the program's actually looking like, what the parents have heard about expectations for the program, and what we expect for students and teachers and parents to all experience in the first couple of weeks. Jen.
Thank you. I first want to say thank you for inviting me tonight to talk about this program. I am beyond thrilled for this opportunity. When Dr. Fetty called and began discussing this opportunity with me, my mind immediately began spinning. It's the opportunity for me of a lifetime to lead this and to develop something that the students can can remember for the rest of their lives. So I'm thrilled that I get this opportunity. I'm thrilled that I get to share this with you guys tonight. And one of the first things that I began to think about when he brought this up to me was the vision, kind of what I wanted for this program. And my main vision for this program is I want an active and engaging and authentic learning experience, but an authentic Olentangy learning experience. And with that, we get that opportunity because we're bringing in these Olentangy teachers. So how can we take what happens in the physical classroom environment and create an experience for the students who are learning virtually? And I believe we truly can. I believe that we're going to create an experience that these students will remember for quite some time, and hopefully continue on throughout the year when they have the opportunity to go back. We hope that they continue to learn in this format. So some of the elements that we began thinking about were, we don't want the kids to sit all day long. We know that that's not best practices, so that was one of our kind of key elements that we began focusing on, was how much screen time do we really want the students to be taking part in when they're learning online. We know what best practice says, and we want to kind of honor that. So on this diagram up here that you'll see, one of the things that we started looking at was the age of the students and how much screen time they're going to spend, but then also how much time they're going to work on their assignments and the activities that they're completing. We know that they don't have that teacher right there with them or that tutor right there with them, so we want to make sure that they're not exceeding that limit and getting that frustration, because then no one's enjoying their experience. So we've got various screen times that we've listed per grade level that we've kind of developed, as well as how much time we want the kids to spend on their daily work that they're doing, that the teachers are assigning for them, so that no one reaches that frustration level. We also really want to keep wellness as a priority. We've been working to develop virtual calming rooms for the kids to take part in and have access to, and kind of getting up and taking those physical exercise breaks that they need, the brain breaks, as well as the mental and health. The teachers have been developing check-ins, weekly check-ins for the students to see how they're doing, not just on their tasks that they're learning, but mentally and physically. How are you dealing with all this? We know that this has been hard for everyone, not just the students, but the teachers as well, and we want to make sure everyone's doing well in this learning environment. And then, of course, we got to have that technology element of, we need you to care for your device and make sure it's charged and ready to go each day. So that was another key focus of just ensuring that technology piece was ready to go. Our teachers over the last week, it feels a little longer, I'm going to say. But over the last week, our teachers have been taking part in a lot of collaboration and professional development virtually. When they came into the Committed Distance Learning program, we wanted to set up an environment for them where they could collaborate with each other. All of these teachers are coming from various buildings, and they've not necessarily worked together, maybe ever worked together in the same building. So we created an environment for our entire CDL community of teachers, as well as then each grade level or department. And so they've been spending the last week, 2 weeks, working together, collaborating with each other, planning, having these conversations. I get to see their conversations because I'm in their teams, and I get to see their conversations, and they're sharing with each other and sharing ideas and sharing videos and sending videos out to kids, welcoming the students. And it's really become truly one Olentangy of all these teachers coming together, and it's been amazing to watch in this team. So we created this environment for them, and then we created some specialized professional development around virtual learning. What is that going to look like? How are we going to take what we normally do in the classroom and make it a virtual experience where the students are thriving or flourishing? And so we've created some blended opportunities. They took some Schoology PD, we gave them Google PD, we gave them Microsoft PD, and then they had another PD that focused on the engagement piece at a distance, the synchronous versus asynchronous. When is it best to use a synchronous versus an asynchronous opportunity? And then the building student relationships. That's a key element of this, is the building student relationships. We want to make sure that everyone has that sense of belonging, even at a distance. So they've been taking part in those and sharing ideas with each other. And one of the things that they're really excited about is those weekly check-ins and that understanding of, I need to check in often with my students to see how they're doing, because I now realize that this is hard for everyone. So they've really grasped that understanding, as well as, again, those opportunities of what's an asynchronous versus a synchronous opportunity for the students. So we've been spending a lot of time on that, and I'm really excited about the work that I see the teachers putting into that. We also recently developed our teacher and student best practices document. Teacher, student, and parent best practices, sorry. So our teacher one was the one that came out first, and that was kind of a best practices. We took a lot of time to develop what we felt and research-based best practices when teaching virtually at a distance. And so we put that out to teachers last week, and it was very well received. It was something that the teachers had been asking for. And it talked about, it focused on the screen time, but then it also focused on some of the other elements of, when might I do a synchronous activity? When might I do an asynchronous? How am I going to lead small groups virtually? Because that small group element is such an important piece of teaching in the classroom. So we began to kind of look at what's that going to look like. So we put that out last week, and we've had a lot of positive feedback from the teachers. Then today we sent out our parent and student guide, where we kind of told the parents, we gave them this visual here as well, and we told them, here's what you are going to expect from your teacher. Here's what you can expect to see from the teacher, but then here's what we expect from you as the student, and here's what we expect from you as the parent. So kind of gave them those best practices when learning virtually and attending virtually. So we put those out today, and so we're positive that we're going to get some good feedback. The teachers were excited about it, and I know that the parents have been asking for some guidance. So we're excited about that. Oh. Sorry. So this is kind of a look at the program. As I said before, we've really been spending this time focusing on what's that first week of school going to look like. And I've been telling the teachers, I know we're all worried about the time that we have with the kids, because we're now teaching virtually, and we don't feel we have as much time as we might have when they're in our classrooms, our physical classrooms. But we really need to kind of push all that curriculum aside for just a little bit and spend this first week getting to know the students, getting to know their learning environments. The kids are going to have trouble getting on that first day. Some kids may lose power. Some kids may not know how to get on. Some may not have help getting on. So we've got to begin, and I've kind of tried to guide them into what these first couple of days may look like, and allow for those opportunities. We've got to allow for those opportunities in order for this to succeed. We don't want the teachers being frustrated, and we definitely don't want the students and families being frustrated. So we've been spending, really, what's this first week going to look like? We're going to do a lot of relationship building, a lot of building of that community and sense of belonging, getting to know you activities, some icebreakers. They've got some fun games that they're planning to play and learn at a distance. Just a lot of that community piece. And the teachers are really excited about it. They've been meeting with their teams, and they've been coming up with ideas of things that they can do to really create that sense of belonging with the students. And then we've been talking about the mix of synchronous versus asynchronous opportunities, as I said. A lot of the live lessons, but what's great about the recorded lessons is the students have the ability to work at their own pace. So if they want to pause, if something happens at home, if the internet goes out, they can go back and rewatch those and still not worry about missing out on the lesson. So while we're gonna do quite a bit of live interactive elements with the students, we really want to focus on those recorded opportunities, because they do allow for students to go back and work at their own pace, work at their own path, kind of access it when that's best for them. The small group meetings are where we're really going to hone in on that independent, what does that student need at his or her independent level, grouping those students, meeting with those, and that's where we're going to focus on those live lessons. Those live interactive elements are going to happen in those small group meetings. And then we want to focus on some independent digital tasks. We as a district have plenty of wonderful resources that we've purchased. So let's start using some of those resources and create some stations or some choice boards, some off-screen activities. So we want to create those independent digital and then off-screen activities. I believe we have a fantastic opportunity to tap into this unique learning environment. These kids have experiences in their home and outside their home that the teachers are beginning to think about, how can I use the, what's outside. Our teachers are beginning to explore the possibilities of how can the students go outside and find elements that are within their homes and outside of their homes to then create some really unique and amazing art projects. So they're starting to tap into that. How can I take advantage of this learning environment? And there's plenty of opportunities for that. One of the things that we do have to, that we've also been working on, is we got to anticipate that there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some obstacles. I've really been talking to the teachers about this is a journey, and we are on this journey together. It is not you, it's not just me, it is us together as one Olentangy. And we've been doing a lot of building of that growth mindset and that focus that we are one Olentangy. We're actually getting together on Monday in our all-staff meeting, and we're going to do a virtual staff picture. So they're really, really excited we've got a lot of great feedback about that when that idea came out, so we're all going to get together and wear an Olentangy shirt and try to do a virtual staff photo. So things like that have begun to evolve, and the teachers really have grasped this growth mindset. And so I'm beyond thrilled and honored to be leading this group, this team, together as we go through this. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't exhausting and that there, hasn't been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks and, things like that. But it really, I'm beyond thrilled, and I keep saying that, but it truly is I'm just thrilled to be leading this opportunity. And I can't wait to come back in a few months and hopefully update all of you.
Do you have a couple questions?
Yeah, I
Go
have a
ahead,
list.
because you might answer mine.
Okay. Thank you. That chart that you did that showed the expectations
Yes.
was very helpful. So are we as a district keeping track of when someone logs in, or does the teacher take attendance? How does that work?
Yes, so we have been working, I will say attendance is a tricky element. I've been touching base with a lot of contacts in other districts just to see what other districts are doing, because I'm curious to know, and I want to make sure that we're going about this the best way possible. So the way we're doing the elementary is a little bit easier. The way we're running our elementary attendance is the teachers are going to take attendance with their homeroom class in the morning. That's kind of an easy one. As long as the students are there and participating in any of the live sessions, then they're counted as present. If a student is going to be absent, we have a form that the parents will fill out, and then it will get sent to the teacher to notify that the student is absent, and we'll have that for our records. If a student can demonstrate through our Schoology analytics or our ClassLink analytics that they've gone in and watched the recorded lesson or taken part in some of the asynchronous activities, then that will also count towards them being present. At the middle school and high school, we're going about that in the same way, as long as they're present for some of those live sessions, but then also can demonstrate that they took part in the asynchronous. We're taking attendance at each period of the day, each block of the day, but it's going to take some figuring out to get the attendance piece element right. We think we have it in place of, as long as we can document that they've gone through the synchronous and asynchronous elements and demonstrated through, we've got exit tickets that the teachers are creating, elements like that, then we should be able to accurately keep attendance.
And then what should the parents and the students expect in the way of I need help? I mean, I want to stress that our teachers are not going to be available at 9 o'clock at night, but what are the expectations of help?
Yes, so we have kind of developed some guidelines. We've got each teacher, when they created their Schoology course, has a Q&A discussion board, so parents can post or students can post to the Q&A discussion board, and then that's going to be available for everyone in that discussion board to see. So if you pose a question and I pop in as a student and I know the answer, I can respond to you. So we do believe that that's going to help to cut down some of those questions. The teachers also have those collaborative groups where they've been posing questions to each other and sharing answers that way. But yeah, it's going to be the phrase that I use with the parents is kind of, we're in this learning together, so it's going to take some time. But I believe through the Q&A, and we've got the help documents out there. We just also, in our update today to the parents, I've been doing Monday and Thursday updates to the parents. And in today's update, we sent out some technology help guides for the parents and for the students. So I think through those and then those Q&A areas, I've been getting a bunch of questions that I'm happily answering for the parents. So I think between all of that, we can get through some of those questions together.
And are the teachers teaching from their homes, or are they coming into the buildings to teach?
It depends. Some of the teachers are teaching from home. Some of the teachers are coming into the buildings and teaching. Some of the rooms are being used.
Right, yeah.
So yes. So some have been teaching from home. Some are teaching from their buildings.
And then I don't know if this is for Jack or not, but apparently in PowerSchool, the parents or the students can see that after their name, they have an A, B, or C now after their name.
Or a
And-
D or an E.
Yeah, and so they were wondering, is that some kind of clue to teachers? This is an A student? I don't know, but I'm getting these questions. People
Well, so
ask me these
that's
questions.
actually, it does tell the teacher or the administration what attendance track the student is on. So A days and B days is where that started. C track is the preschool students. D track are committed distance learning students. And then we have an E track for special arrangements. But that's also visible to the parents in their parent portal as of today. So if you forget what A track means, you can log in, and Ian, our statistician, put it in there today. And I meant to tell Krista, I tested it for him, and he said, oh, good, it works. And then when he was finishing it, he pulled out this big binder of paper in a 3-ring binder and keyed in the exact color code for the Olentangy light blue so that the banner is officially branded. She's trained people well. So, but that's what that indicates in PowerSchool.
Their learning model
Yeah,
Their attendance model.
their attendance
attendance
model. Okay.
and learning.
And then do you want to address, I've gotten the questions, you've gotten the questions. Apparently, the electives have come up.
Yeah, so generally, there are some people who want more electives in CDL. And I understand why, because they're used to having a full breadth of electives that are offered in our middle schools and high schools. And we've said since the outset of CDL that we would not be able to match that breadth. From the day that the registration was opened, the available courses have been posted on the same page that the link was posted on to register. And we have added to those courses since that time. We have not taken away a single course. So the total breadth of the course offerings for electives in CDL are limited compared to the high school, physical high school offerings. But we have added to them, and we knew going into this that we were only going to be able to offer a certain number of electives, and that certain electives weren't going to transition well to CDL with the amount of time that we had. So it's the biggest problem for students who need 5 credits to be eligible for athletics. But we are ensuring that each of those students gets what they need. They might, just like in the high school, you don't always get your first request, but there are courses available, and we are working on creative solutions to add anything additionally that we can come up with the staff we have.
And again, I would say, just like with normal high school scheduling, we have a full array of electives offered. Sometimes we just don't run a course for low enrollment.
Right.
3 kids sign up to take the course, we're not going to run it. That's not being fiscally responsible. So, and that's kind of what happened. I mean, but to put into context of what happened here, though, is when you pull out kids from 4 different high schools and they all have different electives and different requests, and matching it up and then having enough teachers to actually teach all those electives and those kind of things, it was an interesting puzzle. We typically start scheduling high school late January. We start taking high school course requests. And we schedule high school kids from January up through, like, to the start of school, because people are changing courses and such. These guys started on July 28th, August 2nd, whenever it started, being closed, and built a 5,000 student school district.
Right.
The average high school district in the state of Ohio is about 1,000 kids. Our CDL program is the second largest school district in Delaware County. So, again, I appreciate your thoughts of patience and grace, but what these guys have accomplished in this, putting this together, is huge.
Yep. And then finally, just a bit of advice. My daughter is teaching all online. Her whole district, 300,000 plus kids and 30,000 teachers are all online. And so the first day, there were hiccups with technology, so be patient. But she's an elementary teacher, and what she realized was that her students didn't know how to email, they know how to text. So yesterday, she scrapped her lesson plans, and her lesson was how to send an email. Just because they had not sent it. So she shared her screen, taught them how to compose it, then they had to email her back. She gave them a topic, email her back, attach something, and send it to me. So it might be something as basic as that, that these students need.
Appreciate that, that's true, and there will be some bumps, and
Yeah.
like Jen said, get through it together.
So, two things. One, it's interesting that the private sector adapts quickly, right? So a lot of these daycares are now offering offset programs to our hybrid schedule, right? And so in their learning labs, so if the kids come into school, get instruction, then on the off days, they go to the daycare and a learning lab and get help to get their lessons done and get their work done. So it's interesting how the
Right.
public-private partnership can work. Second, have we got any guidance from the state on defining attendance for hybrid and how that impacts funding?
The state has put out some attendance guidance. As far as its relation to funding, I have not.
Because if we're not
looked
capturing
at
these
that.
5,000 kids that are online, where we can capture them physically in the building,
Mhm.
you run the risk of a potential revenue hit because you're not going to get your per pupil number, right?
I haven't heard that they're changing the October count, though.
I
Yeah, they're
have
still
not,
on.
I have not heard that they are changing the October count. What we have been told thus far is that FY '21 will match last year without having any kind of connotation as to change or reduction of ADM due to online learning or completely virtual, because there are some districts that are completely virtual, not just hybrid. So that modification has not been clarified that I have seen in the code or any advice that they're giving us at this
Because
point.
if you're like a Columbus City and you're 100% virtual,
Mhm.
how could you, with confidence, publish an attendance number?
Well, we're gonna,
And that's a significant
Mhm.
portion of their funding.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So again, you have to declare your attendance strategies and report accuritally. But again, it is much more fluid in a virtual world than it is when you show up to
Mhm.
school and
Especially if
sit here all day.
they're asynchronous,
Mhm.
right? And they're just logging on when they want, get their work done when they want, versus it's synchronous and the structure and is there a way you can use technology and sign on and scrape?
Well, in ECOT, they just signed on and left.
Well, that's me, yeah.
But how is it recorded in
That's what they're being
homeschooling?
coached to.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't this similar to a home school? Because you've got your curriculum and you have to cover it.
Mhm. But homeschooling, there's no attendance requirement.
Right.
We're not involved in that at all.
You would think they would
sign off on
follow
it.
a
The
similar.
parents sign off that they've had the 920 hours
Oh, they
that they're
do?
required.
Yeah, they just kind of
Yeah.
say they
But-
have, and that's all it takes. We are using the analytics where available, so through our class link, which is our student dashboard, we can see when a student goes into each app and how long they spend there. And then within the different programs, you can see how much progress they made on what was assigned. So all of that will be taken into account, but Jen and I were just meeting this afternoon about it, and we know what we're doing for the first couple of weeks, and then we're very well aware that we're gonna have to evaluate what's working, what's not working. Because we want to be as accurate as possible and as fair as possible. There's a benefit of flexibility to virtual learning that we don't want to take away, but we also don't want to misrepresent the attendance or the participation of the students.
'Cause it wasn't an issue in the spring because your ADM was set.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, there was no
You guys
attendance in the
open,
spring.
get into October, that's where you've got
But these
some
kids are still
risk.
enrolled in our schools.
Right, they're
in
still
our-
enrolled, even if
But,
not.
I know, but are they showing up?
Yeah. But the other thing, obviously, we'll be monitoring as we go through this and as we start planning for hopefully either return second semester full-time, I mean, whenever we return full-time, there'll be a percentage of this that will not come back full-time. And we'll have to start looking at, do we want to offer this type of program long-term? And then you have, implications for future buildings and a lot of different, in 2013, we did the Project 2020 study that some of you were around for. This is kind of coming full circle.
We thought more of this would be happening already.
Right, right. So it only took a pandemic.
Yeah.
That's usually how it goes, though.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Yes?
Go ahead. So just kind of going back to the attendance, does the technology pick up in activity and like shut off or? will
No,
it
I don't think
report?
any of our software does that.
Okay.
So it'll be, when you're live, you can see that you're live. And then when something is assigned, student progress is typically, you're able to measure the completion amount. So, arguably I assigned you 20 math problems. If you complete them, I can see how well you did and also that you did them. So it's just a matter of feeling our way through that to see, what happens when a student only completes 9 out of 20. We're gonna have to talk through some of those and see what the teacher experience is as well as the student and parent experience and, perfect it as we go.
Well, I just want to commend you. Being in online, that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years in education. I love the wellness checks.
Oh.
That is something that we started doing at my university is wellness checks. And the students have, granted they're adults, but they have just spilled, exactly what they've been experiencing. So it's been an eye-opener to be able to give them the opportunity to share how they're feeling. I also like the sharing of the best practices based on research. It's wonderful to be able to see what worked for someone and be able to apply it and get the same outcome.
That's great feedback. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I have a
Yeah.
question. It's around testing. And I have almost no exposure to distance learning, except I have a college student that came home and had lockdown browsers and, gosh, there were some where they would, if her eyes were averted from the screen, they would send them a signal, and if she didn't look back down at the screen, it shut down. So for our distance learners, what have we gotten that far as testing formats and what we would utilize for testing?
So it depends on the test, but we do have, like our Ames web testing is one of the tests that we do early in the year.
Yeah.
You guys did the training on that today?
They had training last week. Yeah, we had cohorts of training last week, depending on the grade level, because K-1, the Ames web looks a little bit different than the 2 through 5, and then the 6 in algebra. So they all look a little bit different. So we had that training last week. We put the cohorts together to kind of talk about how we were going to, and we're helping them develop plans for the testing and what that's going to look like. It's definitely going to be different, but we have a plan in place for how we're going to deliver that test.
But I don't think we have anything on state testing yet,
Yeah, let's.
so.
And you won't, because they haven't been in legislative session. They only got rid of them for this past school year. So until they come back and work, you won't, we have to go forward.
Which I believe is September, is that correct?
Yeah, they're supposed to schedule one session next week to deal with the liability bill that we hope passes, that will exempt businesses and schools from any liability that would happen due to COVID. But they're not gonna, that's not on, state testing has not been on their agenda.
Remotely close.
I don't know why.
Well, I just wanted to say too, that this has been a district-wide effort, and, it's been very fast-paced, but this has involved every aspect of the organization, and the support that Jen's getting, and that the district is, it's just a case study in collaboration the treasurer's office, the communications department, human resources, the building principals. I mean, it is across the board a district-wide endeavor, and you know, it's just it's a testament to how great a place this is. So I wanted to make sure I put that plug out there.
Well, welcome. You have a you have a large undertaking, and I applaud you for your bravery in taking it on. I don't have any more questions, but I have a comment, and it's more around perspective. My boss, where I work at the Delaware County Foundation, has a couple of children that attend Southwestern City Schools. Isn't that where your husband teaches? So they have suffered with daycare issues, and they are 100% online. And so he's had to bring one of his children into work several times. So I was there, and his son had virtual open house, and I just want to remind our community that our students do have options, and granted, it's not 100% of the options they once had. They have them, and to watch this little boy when his dad's like, yeah, you start school tomorrow, and he's like, he's all excited, and then he's like, online, and I just watched him deflate, because that's not what that child needs or wants to do, and that's not an option that he has. And then today was his first day, and he was back at our office, and it crashed. And he started to cry, you know, and so, you know, our students have options. I'm grateful for them, and we really need the parents and the community to help us make sure those options stay available by keeping everybody safe and well. So thank you for your presentation this evening on our continued distance learning. We have one more presentation, and that is Randy Wright, our Chief Administrator of Service. I can't, it doesn't come out right. But anyways, he will be discussing with us our safe return to sports competitions.
Don't worry, he hates his title too.
Can I just say Chief Administrator? Is that different?
Whatever would make you happy.
That makes me happy.
I serve at the pleasure
Or is
of the
that
board
your
president.
title? Is that technically the superintendent? I'm just gonna call you Chief Administrator. How about that?
Long list of things you've been called, Randy.
It's the most polite thing today, so thank you. Well, I am very excited to be here tonight. It is not a opportunity I thought I was going to get to talk about competition within our district. But Ms. Patrick, you put a lot of pressure on me at the start of your presentation, where you were very complimentary of Cameron with such great reason. But when you said that he spoke like a person 3 times his age, I am 3 times his age, so that's a lot of pressure on me to go into this. But I am incredibly happy to be able to do this. I thought I'd be coming up and basically trying to tell you how we were going to do virtual sports or be stuck doing only esports. But we know with the information we've been able to do and study, we have actually been building towards this since the last week of May. We started talking about sports before we had our graduation ceremonies, because that is when we first got the information that would allow us to even start training, which we were very excited to have that. But from that point until as recently as last Thursday and conversations when I returned here to prep tonight, we got a new piece of information that I'll weave into this. It has been, to echo what Dr. Fetty said, a complete and utter collaboration to be able to do what we are already doing and what we're going to do on a large scale at 2 sites tomorrow evening. But I cannot express my gratitude more strongly for what our athletic directors have done. Jay Wolf at Olentangy, Darren Meeker at Liberty, John Betts at Berlin, and Brett Deal at Orange for their incredible work in conversation and pushback or questioning. And it has been completely and utterly an experiment with comments and feedback on loop since May. And we've been able to do this at the middle school level. And while we have many of our middle school ADs who are doing partial seasons, the 5 fall ADs, Elaine Eddy, who is doing the job at Shanahan, Nate Sikach over at Liberty Middle, Mike Imborski at Berkshire Middle, Dan Horman at Orange, and Peter Minardi at Hyatt's have done an incredible job on top of preparing to teach, because they just get a supplemental for this, and they have done incredible work in the last few weeks to get the middle school teams the same opportunity. And it doesn't stop there, because once we have our plans, all of the coaches throughout have been tremendous from a standpoint of enforcing recommendations and informing everybody about what they need to do, follow-up communication. Jeff Gordon and his team have been incredible, helping us figure out how to do the sanitizing we need for equipment and for facilities, and helping us brainstorm how we're going to pull off some of these venues. And our leadership team, again, the support we've had to look at, we've had to take on some additional low-level personnel to help manage all this with the ticket sales that are going to become very complex. One of the requirements is that we have somebody who is a compliance officer at our events, and we don't have enough to have somebody at every event every night, so we have to look at some way to supplement that as well. And from a technology side, Rob Sexton and his team to help us get to the point, and I'll talk a little bit later about streaming. And it has been, just like Dr. Fetty said, top to bottom across, a conversation since May to pull off the events we've been able to do so far with our non-contact sports. We've been playing golf since August 4th, August 5th, and tennis the week after that. Contact sports started a week ago officially, and then we culminate with our first football games tomorrow evening. So I want to take you through our planning. I don't have slides for you, because what I would do is I put slides up and read it, and there's nothing I hate worse than reading slides. So I'm going to tell you a story about an event, and it's basically going to tell you how we're going through it. We arrived at what we're going to do tomorrow by studying a number of pieces of information to make sure that we are in compliance with all the things that we need to do. We have the health department's orders from our interim director from a week ago, responsible restart statements about youth sports, our venue work, and our boosters have to study information from responsible restart about restaurants and bars to operate their concession stands appropriately. A week ago, we got OHSAA's guidance about requirements, rule modifications, and general recommendations. 2 days later, we got the Ohio Capital Conference return to play recommendations. We have been, from the beginning, working with our Delaware General Health District. Director Hiddleston and her team have been incredible, supporting us and communicating with us, and they're figuring this out as we do it as well. And then we make sure that we're able to comply with all of the policies we have for operating effectively within the district. So all of that's been unpacked. We continue to look at it. As recently as 2:30 today, there was a new piece of information that I've inserted a thought about that a little bit later. The one thing that we have to remember is that we need to celebrate the opportunity. And these opportunities to play sports, for the most part, are going to look different. And it is not going to be the football Friday night that we've come to know and love in this district and across Central Ohio and the state. But we get the opportunity. Our soccer games, our volleyball games, our tennis matches, we get the opportunity we didn't know we were going to have a month ago. I've throughout said this is planning in futility. I had no problem doing the planning, but I told everybody we're going to keep doing it, and I really never thought we were going to get to this point. So we're very thankful to do that. We have seen throughout, OHSAA has trended, let them play, we want to have a season, those sorts of tweets or hashtags. Our whole goal now is to keep them playing. That's where we are now. And the only way to do it, we've said this from the beginning, we are going to go slow to do it correctly. And we are now at the point where we will execute the planning that has gone into this. So with that said, what I want to do is I want to take you through basically thinking about an event. And it's not necessarily a football event, but some of these things, because that's the most complex, it will wrap a little bit more around football. And because I'm still a recovering football coach, that's where my mind always goes. So I want you to think about arriving to the game. And how are we going to first get to a contest? It's going to start with communication from our athletic directors to the opponents and to the opponents' fans to let them know the requirements for coming to the contest, where they're going to park, that sort of thing, but also what they need to do, where they're going to arrive, how they're going to move into the stadium, how tickets will be coordinated. So we don't have that plan. The schools have been knocking that out, and they're doing a very good job coordinating it, but it's a little different at each of the buildings. So I'm not going to go into the minutia of those plans. But they're going to communicate to game personnel as well as officials, the people they need to run the events as well, just to make sure that all of the people that are involved with that understand. The second part of it is how are we going to know who's getting into the game and who's not? So they have undertaken how to go about their ticketing process. Our philosophy in the district is echoing what the governor said a week ago and has kind of echoed throughout the week, that our best practice is an emphasis on allowing family and loved ones of the participants the opportunity to share in the experience. That's our emphasis. We want the parents and immediate family to be able to do that. But we also have a secondary emphasis. And because we have to be able to make some money and we have this opportunity, we are going to, as a secondary opportunity, after those people are taken care of, if there are some tickets available remaining, then our buildings are going to be looking at offering those to other individuals, and they're determining who that is. If it's more to families, to broaden the families. If it is a student with another adult that's not a same household member, they're going through that process and communicating in their format. So there are some opportunities to sell up to the capacity at each of the venues inside and out. Fortunately, in that process, through some guidance from the OCC, we are not able to honor passes in the way that we used to do. Unfortunately, our senior citizens pass that offer discounts, we are not able to accept that per OCC policy. The OCC is not doing passes. There isn't a pass list or any of those things. We're going to be selling tickets. So one thing that we felt it was still important to do, because it's been in effect for the 20 years I've been in the district, our district employees who have children participating in an event, they can use their district pass to get their ticket. And it counts in the count, if you will, for our capacity. But we did not feel we would turn our back on our employees in that regard. So we're studying that, and we're finding with our 2 football games that we have a lot of employees in the district who have participants in our contests. So we're going to study that and see if it's still manageable, and at this point it does seem that we're able to. Each school is coordinating their ticketing process. Some are doing it online, some are doing it via pre-sale in the office or at a table, and some are doing face-to-face sales day of at the gate. And they're communicating that on each of their websites. All that is with the capacity numbers in effect, and those were set by the governor, and we are to seat the lesser of 15% or 1,500 at an outside facility, and the number inside is the lesser of 300 or 15%. And our varsity stadiums, all 4 are the same, so we do have exact same numbers across the 4 schools. We can, using the allotted handicap seating numbers, get 580 fans, spectators on the home side, and we can get 232 on the visiting side. So we're just under 1,100, or just over 1,100 available tickets for each home contest. And typically that's 15% of what we're typically used to. Our middle school stadiums will hold, it depends, they are all various. We can get between 125 and 300 total fans home and away. We have looked at the variance that was communicated today as a possibility. If we need to, we'll talk with Commissioner or Director Hiddleston to verify if we need a variance at the middle schools. We may allow some parents or spectators to bring camp chairs to sit socially distanced on the track to enable, again, the governor stressed again today, the point of this is to get the families there. And we want to make sure we can still do that, even if we have some smaller seating capacities. Our high school gyms, again, a little variance between Olentangy's gym and the other 3, but inside we can get between 200 and 300 across both sides. And then the middle school gyms are about 100 fans. And we think those numbers will be able to accommodate, at minimum, all of the families needing to do that as well. So as I said earlier, schools will make the determination how they will make available, or if they will make available, any remaining tickets up to their capacity, and they will communicate that to their individuals. Some events might include students. Again, football, when you include marching band and cheerleaders and the allotted football players, that's a lot of participants for a home school. And there may not be availability for additional tickets. But an event like a soccer game or a volleyball game, we may not hit those numbers. And so some students may be able to attend. But we also have to comply with OCC policy, which says students must be accompanied by an adult and supervised by an adult. So, and the OCC said we are not having student sections. So those are the two things that we have to have our schools figure out. Can we provide these tickets? How are they going to be done effectively and in compliance with the policies? The good news is, and this is where Rob's team has become invaluable, and I know it's already in effect, is our streaming opportunity. And our hope is that for the varsity contest and high school contest, we can get as many of those streamed as possible. But the reality is there could be 8 events, 2 events, one inside and one outside at all 4 schools on a given night. We only have 10 people trained to do this and be able to take care of these. So they're stretched thin, and we're trying to make sure that we get as many of these available and covered as possible. And if we expand that coverage, we do hope that we might be able to include some middle school events as well. The streaming cost, which is effective because it's the cost of an admission ticket, it's $7 for a football game and a flat fee of $6 for any other game. That's an HD feed of the contest. We have looked at it and studied it. Because of the platform, we are unable to offer discounted tickets and we can't use staff passes. So it's if you're choosing the feed, the HD feed, it's $7 for a football contest, $6 for the others. And I know the links have been shared. Mrs. Fiesel, I know you have shared it numerous times on social media, and they are being shared repeatedly on the websites for these contests. So it has been communicated well, and I've heard good feedback for what we've seen so far. For the streaming, as I said, we hope that we might be able to get to a middle school level, but the good news is for those that want to experience what we can on a Friday night football experience, it's going to be streamed as much as possible, and that definitely includes a performance of our marching bands, because that's their one opportunity to play at home, because unfortunately OCC policies, because of limited visitor attendance, bands will not be traveling to away contests for this year. So we're hopeful that this is an opportunity, at least, that they can be seen by a greater number of individuals by that being streamed as well during the contest. So now that we're in that event and we're thinking now we're just getting into the game, the seating for the game, each of the schools has taken that number and they have sectioned off seats to accommodate different family sizes. There's some single seats, some double, triples, and even seats for a family of 4 that are separated by either tape or painting on the walkways. And they're also setting up egress and ingress so that there's one-way traffic. People are trying to keep everybody social distance as possible. All spectators are expected to be in their seats. All spectators are expected to be wearing a mask at all times. Those are state and OCC guidelines, so we're working to communicate that. And one of the additions that the state asked us to do was to have a compliance officer at every event so that it is someone who can enforce that on the home side. They have said that at an away event, then it's an administrator who becomes the visiting compliance officer for each of those. As we have gone through this, the athletic directors have taken the most recent guidance and they are developing plans with all of this information, and we will be submitting that to the health district for their review so that they are aware of how our contests are being facilitated to make sure that they don't have questions in that. The event itself, gates for a football game will open 1 hour before the event. All other varsity contests and all other contests will be 30 minutes prior to the event as when the gates will open. The state has issued guidelines, OCC has issued guidelines very clearly stating that there will be no congregating before or after the game. In layman's terms, that means no tailgating. That means no post-game meal for players. It was explained by Mr. Betts. It basically goes back to your travel days. You dress for the game, you go to the game, you leave with your family after the game. That's what we're doing. Why? To ensure that we have an opportunity to play and that we can keep our kids playing. For our home football games, as we said, we will either have our full or, in the case of Orange, it's just not possible to have 220 some individuals for the band to perform. Dr. Cox has been amazing. He has worked to split his band into 2 groups, and they will alternate their performing weekends. But as I said before, they will not be traveling on the road. A couple of schools, and I don't want to, a couple of schools have looked at the possibility of, when the football team is away, maybe hosting their own band preview night back at the stadium for the opportunity to focus in on that. The schools are pursuing it, and if they choose to do that, they'll have more information that will be communicated out to their respective communities. As far as cheerleaders, our cheerleaders are a vital part of the event, and our squads vary between 12 and 24 at this time. So we will have our full squads at our home games. OCC guidance has said at away games no more than 16. That mirrors the football playoff rule, so we will follow that. State guidance has also indicated the max number of athletes that can participate in any contest for either team. For football, that is 60 participants. So we have 2 of our football teams that will not be able to dress their full squads, and the others are just under that 60 cutoff. For soccer and field hockey, that number is 22 per squad, and volleyball, it's 15 per team. So, as I said, the teams are going to show up on the buses. They're going to be dressed. We will have restroom facilities available, but not locker room facilities for changing. And it becomes more and more like the days of our youth when we were traveling in that way. We do have inclement weather plans for the home team. Again, thinking in football terms, the gymnasiums would be an adequate space to bring our athletes in. The visiting team, per guidance, will have to go back to their buses, and spectators will need to return to their personal cars. So in the event, and tomorrow looks like we may have some inclement weather, our schools may have to practice this tomorrow. Another one that's kind of odd is not so much. Everybody needs to bring their own water, but we will have some refill opportunities. We'll have hand sanitizer on the sidelines, and we have seen this go on with our practices. We'll have the big Gatorade jugs or whatever is appropriate, and an athlete would have to fill their own bottle. They're scrubbing in, they're filling it up, they're scrubbing out, a lot of hand sanitizer, but everybody will have their own water bottle. Our football sideline has increased. It used to go from the 25 to 25. They've taken it a 90-yard or an 80-yard window from the 10-yard line to 10-yard line to ensure that there can be social distancing while action is going on the field, and then everybody else can be social distanced on the sideline. A couple more things, and then I'll take questions. I said earlier that our booster groups have to comply with responsible restart guidance for restaurants, so they have been pursuing that. They've already opened or they're working on opening so that they will have some limited concession options available. There isn't guidance for where do you have to stand to eat or move. It would appear that you can eat on your way back to your seat or eat seating down. No restaurants have everything must be consumed sitting. We don't have seating areas for our concession stands, so there is no guidance in that regard. I did talk about the compliance officer. The last thing I want to talk, so that's the event. The other obvious concern is going to be what happens if a positive case comes into one of our teams. As we've dealt with that in small pockets so far. With all of that, a positive case just starts a mechanism of our conversation with the health department and a communication protocol to families, then to the team, then to wider spread if need be. And now that we are moving into competitions, that wider spread could be telling the opponent, we had a positive case. So the health department will guide us through that, but we will be actively communicating that throughout. In the event that the health department determines that a outbreak has occurred and a team is going to be told to quarantine, and that results in the cancellations of games, the OCC has established a pool protocol that if you have a canceled game, you would go into the pool with other canceled contests, and then you would try to reschedule within that group. So the OCC, because the majority of our contests are going to be with other OCC schools, they are putting everybody together to try to facilitate a reschedule. The football season is 6 games with opportunity, and the playoffs start right after. I know Mr. Rafe has explained this a few times to individuals, that everybody makes the playoffs, and if you lose, then you can try to reschedule, and you still have an opportunity for up to 10 games should it occur. But this pool concept is the opportunity that if there are canceled games due to outbreaks, that we can continue to play our like opponents. So that is the nutshell of it. Again, before taking questions, again, reminders, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we finally have the opportunity to play, an opportunity that we did not know that we were going to get. And our only chance to do it right is to do it in compliance with all of these guidelines, because we want to keep them playing. We want this to be a positive experience, and we want this to be the building block for how we can return to the Olentangy we know and love as soon as possible. With that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Comment. Not to take a chance in going into the minutia, but I saw in the news recently that they were showing pictures of what the referees are going to do, where they'll never touch the ball. But they put a marker down on where the next play will be, and only the center picks up the ball and places it. I thought that was kind of interesting. Will that be the case here?
Yes, because that would go into the football guidance, and so there are 7 different sports guidelines for our teams to follow, and that is part of what that is.
Well, I had an opportunity to experience all of this twice this week, last night, most recently, for field hockey. And so we had all the lines that we had to follow to come in, to come out. And then the ticketing. Is it the same ticketing program that all the schools are using, the GoFan, or is that just what?
I think there's 2 different programs that are being used, and then I know Berlin is not using an online ticketing process.
Okay.
So, but each athletic website would have the information explaining their ticketing process.
Okay. And then for the live stream, I know last night I was listening, there was a parent who was watching the live stream, but there was no audio. Is there audio with it?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
Right? So if we just hooked a mic up to the camera, we would get the crowd.
Yeah.
So
You'd hear things you wouldn't want to hear, probably.
Right.
probably, yes.
Age coaches.
Somebody yelling or whatnot.
Yeah.
So what we do is where we can, we tie it into the announcer.
Okay.
And we also tie it into the scoreboard controls where we can, so that we can get the score and the clock
Awesome.
on the feed as well.
Okay. Good. All right, and just one last question.
Play-by-play?
Go ahead.
No play-by-play then?
No play-by-play? Well, Orange High School and their group, they're still utilizing.
I said, because I watched Kaylee's game streamed, and they have an announcer at the clock,
And our schools are coming back in, and so our goal is that our journalism, our broadcast teams will embrace this and start to take, and that's where we're looking at freeing up Rob's team so that the schools can take on some of that, where they will provide their own flavor to those opportunities, so that we can stream some games that are available there.
Haven't they streamed before?
Yeah, we've been streaming them for years. And honestly, Orange there's a teacher and a student do the play-by-play. They have an end zone camera. and then this was through, I mean, the last time I watched one in a couple of years, but it's amazing. It's like watching it on ESPN.
Yeah.
What they do with their broadcast journalism. But, you know, and again, I think that will continue to grow. This will be another byproduct of this. You know, as part of the last, you know, the last bond package was putting those broadcast journalism rooms in every building and the equipment that goes with them. So that will spur this, and now that we'll be streaming all these things, we'll have teams of kids at these games in the future doing live broadcasting. Now, of course,
Great.
you gotta have somebody supervising them too, because you never know what they'll say.
Right, right.
As we learn now, you always gotta make sure there's not a hot mic.
Yeah, really.
Right. And just the last comment, I know there was, the coaches the opportunity to be able to watch film with the live stream that they hadn't before. So I think this gives them that opportunity.
Very good.
I had a couple of, first of all, that is impressive. I think that community members probably don't quite understand the magnitude of involvement to make all this happen, so thank you. I know that you've been living this the last several weeks. A couple of things. The bands, normally they occupy the stands. I assume they will not be in the stands and they'll be spread out
That is
elsewhere.
correct. Seating is up to the home events, but the reports that I've gotten from the schools is they will be socially distanced in numerous bleacher sections at one of the ends behind the goalposts.
And then it'll be up to the buildings to manage. I know as the best perk of being a board member was I did not have to buy tickets to my son's game. So I really appreciated that. He's not in a fall sport, so I don't have to worry about this for a while. But those employees that do, how do they get their number counted so that they know that seat isn't
And
available?
there's
occupy
either
it.
a ticket to, when you're buying your ticket, there's a code to enter as employee.
Okay.
Again, I'm not
It's
buying
different by
tickets
building?
myself, so I've not gone through it. It will be by building. And then face-to-face, having your pass available for pre-sale or at the gate would be exchanged for the ticket.
Okay, and then who's left that we can compete with? If we've got schools that are 100% distance right now, they're not
Well,
competing? Or
Columbus-
they
They
are?
said today they can compete.
Yes.
Really?
Even Columbus.
Columbus is.
Have they been practicing?
I do not know
don't
if they've
know.
been doing training or not.
So do we know if
Our schedules are set.
Our schedules are
They
set.
were rescheduled.
They were?
Yes.
Yeah, so what they did is we're starting our schedule on week 4. So when Columbus Public would be starting theirs, they would be starting at week 4, which would be pretty much into their league schedule. So they'll only
No
be playing on
conference, so no non-conference games?
well, technically, like Liberty's at Berlin
Yeah.
and Olentangy,
Olentangy's at
Olentangy's at Orange. Those are non-conference games.
That's true.
They're not in the same division of the same conference, so that's the only one. But, because those are, the OCC, because of the 6-team divisions, the last 5 games are conference games. Week 4 and week 2, they call them crossover games with the other OCC schools, so.
And did they put a cap on the number of the band?
They did not, and that was an interesting question, because at some places, there will be huge bands like Orange, and there are schools that have bands even larger than Orange's.
Yeah.
But we looked at it, we had a lot of debate, if we're saying 60 for football, should that be the same? And the schools felt they could manage as long as Orange, and Dr. Cox, we appreciate his willingness to work with his people, to cut theirs in half, so that the families can be involved for everybody. And again, it's not perfect, but it's an opportunity we didn't know we would have. And
But
so
is the band size the same, and then just half the kids go one game, half the kids go another game?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think they're
Because they're all out
trading
practicing,
over.
you could see. it.
Correct.
Go ahead. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for doing this, because if you ask Zach Harrison, CJ Nassman, Luke Campbell, the Slade twins, AJ Akuri, and these are just a few of our former athletes that do not get to play this year because their college conferences aren't playing, they would gladly switch places with what we have to deal with here. I'm sure Zach Harrison would, and Luke Campbell. So thank you for doing this, but also remember that we also want to have winter and spring sports. So, you used to have sleepovers after games, or get-togethers in someone's basement. That isn't recommended this year because we need to keep these athletes healthy so that they're not bringing it into the school so that we get to continue with this season and on to the next seasons. So please, please, please follow the social distancing guidelines, wear your mask and use hand sanitizer and just be smart about things. Now with my questions, I've been asked, can bars and restaurants live stream this?
I think the short answer to that is anybody that has the link and has paid for the opportunity can stream the game. It's not something we would partner with.
Right.
But again, the link is going to be available to anyone. So the short answer is yes. It's not something that'll be a byproduct of what we do.
And then what about OYAA? Are we making our facilities available to them? I mean, they have sports too.
We have, and we did that with youth teams
Yeah,
in the
baseball
summer,
this
and there were
summer.
some things that did happen, and there were some that didn't. But to the extent that we can, our outside groups have access as long as they are in compliance, they have their own plans, and they are taking care of their own needs in that regard.
Yeah, I spoke to Coach Dave about a week or so ago, and while he's certainly very disappointed he doesn't get to coach Zach or Justin Fields, he is appreciative of the opportunity to coach his son in 6th grade OYA football.
And maybe basketball too. And then I wanted to touch on the athletic budget, because I had people ask me, well, are we going to offer senior citizen discounts? And, what about, can I use my badge and get a discount on streaming? Well, just like in the colleges, our athletic budgets, practically run themselves too and help us to run all the sports that we can run. Bowling doesn't sell tickets, so we have to make money to sustain the entire athletic department and to be able to offer all of the sports that we do. So we're taking a hit. Our athletic departments are going to take a hit on this one. So I just want people to realize that when you're asking for discounts, and people have called me to ask for discounts that have my same last name, we have to be cognizant that we're losing money this year, unfortunately, on this. Now, I just want to reiterate what you had said, that you don't think at this point that middle school sports will be streamed because of...
For two reasons. One, the availability to have people run the equipment. And secondly, we do not have the kind of connectivity at our middle school stadiums that was built into the high school stadiums upon their construction.
Gotcha. Okay. That is all.
Great questions. Mr. O'Brien?
Just a quick one. We did reflect the reduction in revenue in the forecast, right? So what we're talking about, a hit to the athletic budgets. Do we anticipate that in May?
That's
Or
not
put it in
general
October?
fund money.
Athletics are run through a 300 fund. They are not part of the 5-year forecast. They are their own separate fund, as is the food service fund. So they will have to take a look at their budgets and see where they are. We do know that when we started this fiscal year that they had carry forward balances that will help absorb some of this. But we'll really have to keep working through their budgets and make sure to see where they land at the end of the year. Because generally, the revenue generated from their football season is the highest ticketed season, highest sales season, and that's what carries the rest of the programming.
Yeah.
There are other districts that have considered looking at whether or not their general fund will have to help their athletic funds. I haven't put that analysis together for our particular district at this time. But there are other things such as, can we use our PPE support from the federal funds to help with offset some of the losses or things that the athletes are going to have to do for cleaning and things of that nature. So we're looking at all of that information in totality to see, does general fund help the 300 fund? Does the 300 fund get depleted? How do we want to make it all work together?
Okay.
Good question, though.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's very encompassing. Mr. Rafe, your superintendent's report.
I really thought this might be a short board meeting.
Not a chance.
Really?
There's too much information.
Yeah.
There is a lot.
There's a lot.
Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Well, I'm going to keep mine real kind of light and kind of celebrate the start of some really good things that have been going on. So really, I think all my slides are pretty much live the mission slides, as we like to call them. United Way, Delaware County donated 465 backpacks for our students across all of our buildings. So we're very, very thankful. Thanks to Mr. Wright for coordinating that delivery of those resources. Our teachers and staff have been working for the last 2 weeks, obviously getting prepared. I can tell you, they are highly, highly appreciative of the time moving that, the board changing our calendar and moving the start of the school year to August 31st. And they have been putting in just great work, getting everything ready. I've been in a lot of buildings in the last few days, seeing how the rooms are arranged and the PPE's all set up. So they've been hitting it really, really hard. So as I don't know, any of you had a child go through Allen Creek Elementary, but a group of parents contacted one of our former teachers, Annie Ernst, about the fact that in the spring they lost the opportunity to do their dodo bird project, which is just something our fifth graders do. It's kind of like a very traditional project here in the district. Annie Ernst was a great teacher in the district for a long, long time. So they actually contacted her to ask how to do it. And being typical Olentangy person, Annie just said, well, let's meet someday and a few days over the summer and we'll all do it together. So she deserves another shout out to Mrs. Ernst. So
Didn't
thank
she
you.
retire this year?
Oh yeah, she retired last year.
Last year.
I assume also no DC trips in the fall?
Correct.
Correct.
As of right.
Move them to the spring, or they're just not doing them?
Yeah, you haven't, yeah, we have 3 scheduled already in the spring. I'm sure Hyatt's and Berkshire.
Berkshire has rescheduled for the spring
Yeah.
because they were actually going during the week of the election.
Ooh.
So regardless, they
Yeah.
didn't feel it was a good.
Not a good
That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Hyatt's, I did not hear plans.
But they're definitely not going in the fall, and I'm sure they're looking at rescheduling to the spring, so. We had actually a group of parents started a positive social media campaign, and one of the activities that they encouraged students to do was to take to the sidewalk and leave a message for the staff as they return to school last week. So our staff walked into a bunch of really nice, positive, welcome back messages. So we're highly, highly appreciative of the parents and students that did that. It really made our staff feel appreciated. So Olentangy High School and Orange High School students partnered with VenTech Solutions to work on a program that they call the VenTech Youth Innovations Team. It's like a Shark Tank-like concept. Dr. Fetty has served on as a panel of
Right off-
judges, so
right off of Polaris.
they're coming here tomorrow for an awards presentation. It's just and they're actually VenTech totally supports this whole program, and when the kids come up with an idea like in Shark Tank, they decide whether or not they're going to fund it to
Wow.
try
Wow.
to bring their idea to market. So it's Mr. Kanduru, who's the owner of VenTech, has been really supportive. He's on our business advisory council now, so we're like this partnership with VenTech Solutions. So great opportunity for our kids. So with that, the agenda's pretty light. I don't have any items to note, and I'll take any questions.
I have a quick one.
Go.
Okay. How would if teachers have prepared for this had we not changed our schedule?
Oh
It
my
doesn't seem
gosh.
possible because the amount of work that's going on and the updates and the PPE equipment coming in.
And we were, again, I think I've gotten some, emails about, you know, like, why is PPE not here? Why is things, I mean, again,
The whole country's ordered it.
right.
Yes.
And we did, you know, why did we order
Every
this?
country has
instead-
ordered it.
You know what, we get a picture of a certain type of PPE, you know, like, we got a picture of a certain type of PPE, a desk screen that has big white panels around the outside of it. Well, we had some of those in here and set them up, and what we found was we simulated a teacher standing in front of it, and the person sitting in that box was having difficulty tracking the teacher as they were moving around the room because of the border of those dividers. In addition to those things costing like $8 when other ones cost $2. So, but, you know, again, we were willing to buy something that was maybe more expensive if it really was the best product available, but Jeff and his team vetted all those things. And it took some time to decide which we were gonna use and then get them ordered, but as you say, the whole country's doing it, so.
And I've enjoyed Mr. Gordon's
Tour.
on the scene
Yes.
tours. You might have a new calling in social media or videos or something,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, so you're right, there's no way we could have gotten it done. But the other thing that it's really given our whole staff a really good sense of security and safety. They, you know, 2 weeks ago, they didn't know what they were walking into. They didn't know how their rooms were gonna be set up. They didn't know how all this social distancing was gonna work. And I was in Freedom Trail today, and a custodian said something, I still don't understand why we're switching class, why kids are going to specials. Why doesn't a special teacher come to the room? Or why are the kids going to the cafeteria? And why aren't they eating in their room? And I said to him, John, honestly, I don't know the answer to all your questions. I do know this, there were 60 teachers involved in the back to school committee, there were a bunch of administrators, and every suggestion you just made was discussed. And that team of people, for whatever reason, came up with this plan. So what's what we're gonna do? And there are a multitude of reasons why. Again, going to lunch provides a sense of normalcy for kids. Eating in their room isolated from the other kids there's only gonna be like 40 fifth graders going to lunch on a given day at Freedom Trail. Let's get them in the cafeteria. At least have them have some sense of normalcy in that regard. And, you know, same thing with going to the art room, or going to the gym, going to whatever room it might be.
Well, I want to commend the plan because there's a process. Like, we're all going to have to go through this process, and our teachers couldn't visualize. So now they're in there, they're visualizing, they're setting up plans, you know, and they're adjusting. And our students are going to go through the same thing next week. They're going to have to come in, they're going to have to adjust, they're going to have to get used to the new schedule and routine. And so I appreciate the plan, and I think the staff does as well, and I think our students will when they return to us next week. But Mrs. Fiesel.
I just have two things. One, there's a new state guideline or regulation or whatever that's coming out tomorrow. The governor talked about it today, and it's the reporting of COVID illness. And as soon as he said that, people started freaking out on social media. Well, that was our plan. We have a plan for notification in place already. The only difference is that now, and we've already been working with our county health department. Now the county health department has to report those numbers to the state, and they're going to make a whole dashboard. I mean, my God, we send information home when kids get lice. I know because one of my kids brought lice into the school. So this is not going to be any different than how we already handle parent notification. It's just now the health department is reporting those numbers, so we'll get to see if Solon's numbers match up with Olentangy's numbers. So people online were saying, don't report it if your kid is sick. Yes, we need that information. If the kid is sick, we need to know if we need to send out the lice form or the COVID form. Okay, so just,
Well,
it's
again,
just,
it's gonna be
it's the
incredibly
same.
important that people
Yes.
if the kids are sick, regardless of the symptoms, they need to stay home.
Exactly.
You know, again, we're gonna, people are asking me about, you know, how long is it gonna take to come back? And how long is it gonna take to, and what's it gonna take to make us come back full time? And I don't know those answers today. I wanna see what starts happening. You know, I still contend that we're not going to, I predict that we're not going to have to shut our schools down because of cases with kids, just like with any communicable disease. But I also say we shouldn't have to shut down Tyler Run because there are a couple cases at Johnny Cake. So we have to look at it that way. And I think our problem will come is a large number of staff are positive and have to be quarantined. And then their subsequent contacts have to be quarantined. So that's the thing that we'll have to determine. And we'll have to determine, you know, again, depending on the cases and the contacts and all those things, when it will be safe to bring everybody back. I guess we'll have to gauge how successful we're being in the hybrid. If we really feel like we're being successful in the hybrid and it's safer that way, maybe we don't have to, don't take that risk. But again, we'll have to look at that. And I just don't know how long it's gonna take to come to that conclusion, but it'll be something that we'll discuss. I look at Randy, or fight about every day as we discuss it.
Well, the colleges that have come back, it's not that the kids have contracted it in the classroom. It's what they're doing off campus. University of Notre Dame that came back early and thought they had the best plan ever. Well, you have an off-campus party and then 300 kids test positive. We can control the people here. You've said it before. It's what happens outside that we have no control of that might upset the apple cart here.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, we're just gonna keep pushing forward as best we can with it and make the best of it. I honestly, I think, I still, in my conversations with a lot of teachers, you know, managing 10 to 12 kids in a classroom, they're gonna get a lot of individualized attention.
Yes.
And what they're gonna be able to accomplish with 10 to 12 kids in a classroom could be twice as much as what they might accomplish with 28. And you know, Mrs. Patrick, in your board president's report, I appreciate your sentiment about, I'm glad you said it the way you said it about expectations.
Yes.
Adjusted expectations. That doesn't mean lowered expectations.
They're different.
Our expectations are the same, and our staff expectations are every bit as high as our parents' expectations when it comes to student performance. So I really think it's gonna be and again, I'm not saying that about the hybrid schedule and the hybrid model and what I know our staff will accomplish with kids in that model right now, because I don't want to come back I want us to come back full time. So do our staff wants to come back full time. But a teacher said it to me today, we might like this better. Well, don't get too used to it.
My son is excited that he will go to the Career Center on certain days and the high school on other days, and that he will, you know, his day gets broken up. And I'm like, oh yeah, but bud, you still gotta log onto the computer and do your work. And I do have questions, but I am patiently waiting to see how that looks on those off days, you know, and what the kids will be doing, how much time on screen time, how much work they'll have, you know. I'm waiting.
Well, and again, I will encourage everybody, if they have a question about what's happening with their child at their child's school, the first person they should talk to is that child's teacher or that child's principal. They don't need to send you guys an email.
I don't know the answer.
Oh, we don't have the answer.
Don't know the answer to. So,
Nor does Facebook.
right. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Hatfield, would you please present your treasurer's report this evening?
Sorry, I need just a moment. These masks are really itchy. But thank you for allowing me this time to come up in front of the board and talk about a few of the treasurer items that are going on in our department. We have a couple of things that I want to discuss that are really just happenings within our department at this time. Our fiscal year 2020 audit has begun. You may have remembered from previous board meetings that we went out to bid for an independent public accounting firm to do the audit for us. That'll save the district approximately $10,000 a year versus having the auditor of state perform that same audit function. So we're happy to have them back on site, and they are getting ready to go. The Plattenberg team is the team that will be working with us this year. And our budgetary accountant, Madison Ratliff, is the individual from our team that serves as the liaison for the auditors as they come on or as they're asking for information. So he will coordinate efforts with them to make sure that they have shared materials or online materials as much as possible, so that they are not on site and coming in as visitors quite as often as they have in previous years or in other years. So we're pretty excited about this to occur with Plattenberg's team. We have a plan that hopefully will be shorter in terms of length of time taken for the audit. Traditionally, we wrap up about the end of December or right around the Christmas holiday break. But hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up around November with our new team and with their plan of action that they have for this audit. So again, that will be going on. Mr. Ratliff will make sure that the auditors are looking at the different departments and are introduced to the department heads that they would need to talk to as they audit food service, and they also do an IT audit as well. So he'll make sure that they get to the appropriate staff member in the central office building. Another component that we're excited to bring forward and kind of share with the board and with the community is our staff wellness program. This is not a new program. We've had one in place, I believe, since 2013 or 14 in various forms. But since we have been in the seat, so to speak, we have partnered with Mount Carmel Wellness. We've had the same health coach for the last 3 years now and had a couple of different coaches prior to that. I've been really happy with our partnership. This year, the biometric screenings will kick off the programs for this year, September 9th through November 16th, which sounds like a long stretch. But what Mount Carmel does for us is go to each school building and offer a biometric screening various times based on when the students come into the building and when the staff have some free time in the morning. But they will come to each school building, they will go to each transportation department, and they will come into central office and offer those screenings. Mount Carmel has been working on the front lines during this pandemic for other companies. They are obviously a well-known medical institution and have proper procedures and policies in place to make sure that they are following proper protocol and keeping staff members safe through this process. We are asking that staff pre-register. We will not take walk-ins this year, which is different than we have in the past, just due to social distancing concerns and making sure that we have the appropriate amount of people on site to perform those biometric screenings. So I wanted to reiterate where the staff can find that program. Within their My OLSD landing page, there is an application that is entitled OLSD Employee Benefits. When you open that application, there are 9 different buttons or apps within that for our various partners within our health insurance programs. Mount Carmel is posted there. If you click on the app within there, you'll go to the login page where you can schedule your biometric screening. You do not have to go to the building that you work at. You can go to any facility and time that is available that fits your schedule. And we do offer the screenings to our ESCCO partners who are on site on a regular basis. So even though they may not be Olentangy payroll staff, if they are full-time with us, they are certainly welcome to participate. And we're really encouraging folks to do that because you can get a flu shot. Flu shots have been available several years now, but now more than ever, it's important that folks have access or the ability to choose to get one. So you can get a flu shot through the biometric screening, and we're encouraging people to go, if not for all of the services, at least for that. Also this year with Mount Carmel Fitness, or with MC Fit, last year when participants participated in the biometric screening, they got a discounted rate for a membership to MC Fitness. That is being offered again this year, but you have to participate in this year's biometric screening in order to get that discount. It's a pretty healthy discount. It's about a $245 membership for the individual to join. So another way to help people encourage their activity level and staying fit. And then throughout the rest of the year, we will focus in on staff mental health and well-being supports through various things such as cooking demonstrations, mental health awareness, yoga, meditation, all of those things that can help our staff help themselves and make sure that they have an outlet for their well-being as they're serving our students. So we're excited to get that program off and running this year. And then the last bullet point, of course, the CARES Act broadband connectivity grant. We spoke about this at our last meeting. We have submitted an application for that. Mr. Sexton, our Director of Technology, has put together a work plan for that and the items that we can use for that broadband grant, which would be expanding our Wi-Fi to outside or around the building area, and then MiFis, which are small portable wireless connectivity hotspots for families that may not have access to the internet. So we're excited to hear about that. The awards are supposed to be delivered from the Ohio Department of Education sometime the week of the 31st. So we should know pretty soon whether or not that application was approved. The remainder of the items are a part of the treasurer's action items for this evening. We have our July board financials, and as we are working through our real estate collections, the Delaware County Auditor issues what they consider advances on our tax collections. A lot of times folks might confuse that as taking a loan, but it is not a loan. It's just the terminology that the county auditors use. We are allowed to request an advance payment up to 90% of what the county auditors have collected for us at one particular time. So again, it's not a loan. It's the real estate taxes we would normally collect. We're just asking for it as they collect it versus waiting until one large payment. So those have been coming in July. You'll see that in terms of revenue on our July financials. We anticipate that final settlement will be delayed until September, mid-September, maybe even the end of September, due to the extension that was granted to folks who are paying their property taxes. They have extended that due date, so we won't get the final collection in August like we have in the past. It'll take a little bit longer for us to get those funds, but the same amount of revenue is anticipated to come. In terms of personal protective equipment or PPE expenditures, we've spent approximately $77,000 in actual costs in the month of July. We are tracking those in two different ways. As you have heard from Mr. Gordon, they are keeping a spreadsheet of everything that they need, and as orders come, they know exactly what's due, what's to be coming into the buildings. When we're looking at it from the treasurer's office, we're looking at it as it books and we pay for it, and it hits the expenditures. So it seems really low when you think about July and what we have, but that was actual cost. A ton more was ordered than versus ordered and completely paid for. The good news is that the Federal CARES Act or CRF funds, that was $1 million that we received from the state or from the feds, that was approved and granted and issued to us this month. So moving forward, we should see our PPE expenditures post directly to that fund. And we will be able to go back and take this $77,000 that is posted to the general fund and reallocate that to those federal dollars. So we'll monitor that going forward. We'll still give you a report of where we are with actual PPE expenditures, because we know from previous conversations, eventually it will post to the general fund and stay there. We have amended appropriations and board meeting minutes. Again, those are items that we bring forward every month to make sure that we are in compliance with budgetary regulations and ORC compliance for board meeting minutes. We want to say thank you to our boosters. We have had a couple of donations that have come from our Liberty High School boosters and our Orange High School boosters for assistant tennis coach, a girls assistant volleyball coach, and assistant cheer coaches coming into those two high schools. And we are very grateful for their continued support and also for the support of our community members who do everything from create chalk welcome signs for our staff and support our students in multitude of ways. We are very fortunate in this community to have such an involved and active parent groups. So thank you so much for that. The last two items, and I apologize if I go quickly or too quickly, these are the most, I would say, time-intensive or detailed-oriented items that I have for you this evening that are unusual to what we normally bring forward. We have a claims litigation resolution for approval. There is so Purdue Pharma bankruptcy, filed for bankruptcy. This company produces prescription medication. When they filed bankruptcy, they filed because there was an issue where their prescription had an opioid addiction to the element within it. And so because of suits, they filed bankruptcy. When they filed bankruptcy, Olentangy Local School District was listed as a debtor at that time by the court system. And what that really means is not that we owe them money or they owe us money or we received any kind of pharmaceutical payments, but what it's related to is our health insurance. Olentangy Local School District is a self-insured health program for our staff, and so it's related to any kind of prescription medication that our staff may have participated or bought or purchased through that self-insured program. That's the connection. There's not anything to be concerned about in terms of fiscal impropriety, but that's why we were listed. We spoke to our attorneys in this matter and knew that we already were listed publicly in this case. It made sense for us to follow forward with filing a claim. The bankruptcy court established a dollar amount per entity listed, and so that's the dollar amount that we actually filed for. It's a very large number, it's in the millions. But as we know, when we look at bankruptcy case, it could, first of all, take years, and second of all, it's very highly unlikely that we would receive any kind of settlement in that large of a dollar amount. But having said that, we feel it's prudent to file and see where it takes us. We are not obligated to stay within to keep the claim on file. We can withdraw it at any time should we feel that it gets too time intensive or it starts using too many resources to follow up with. And other municipalities and school districts have filed a claim and are a part of this bankruptcy posting. So it's not anything uncommon. It just might look alarming to the community because it's so unusual and something that you don't necessarily associate with school districts. So something to consider, the backup information we have in our office if there are further questions about how the claim was filed and any legal representation that we have in that matter. And finally, we have the eFinance Plus software. We had previously talked about this at another board meeting and had questions about the liability that surrounded the master service agreement. So just for our community, I want to kind of walk through the names that are listed on the paperwork as well because it's a little confusing. So eFinance Plus is the name of the software that we would use. PowerSchool is the software provider. PowerSchool is responsible for providing us our student information system. So as a parent or community member, if you hear PowerSchool, that's where you log in to see your students' coursework, their grades, and connect to food service for payment and see any kind of postings there for your child. So that's why PowerSchool sounds familiar, and all of the paperwork for the service agreement says PowerSchool because they are the software provider. eFinance is another arm or another branch of software that they have developed. It talks to and works with PowerSchool, so student information would be able to translate, if we would need it, into eFinance Plus. And they also work with Unified Talent, which is an HR module that we use to help with staff forms, applications, and any kind of evaluations that our staff that we need to do for staff electronically. So all of those components are owned by PowerSchool and work together well in that regard. Meta Solutions is who would facilitate the implementation and future technical support. So Meta is the group that we are a member of. They support all of our IT and fiscal software at this point. They have for years. It used to be Trekka, then they merged, and now it's Meta. So the name has changed over the years, but it's the same group that helps service our software. So they would still be servicing our fiscal software. They would still be using the firewalls and the security measures that they currently have in place and that we currently use. And they would also help us facilitate how to use the software, how to do training, and how to get the software out through the district, because it's going to be a large push to get the software from our entry points at the building so that an individual bill or order comes all the way up and has a workflow through the district. But the good thing about that is it's going to become electronic. So think of all the paper that floats around with an invoice and how many hands have to touch it and give approval for payment. It'll all be an electronic workflow with the software solution, and Meta will help support that and help us train our staff. So we're excited about that opportunity. And again, we just kind of touched on the software enables electronic workflows and helps us get rid of a lot of paper files. To speak to the liability issue that was brought forward at our last time we had the software before us, we have worked with our counsel, with Scott Scriven Law, to take a look at the master service agreement that is behind this software. Typically, the master service agreements, when you have a program like this where an IT service center has vetted the vendor, has brought forward opportunities, you kind of get a boilerplate template type of contract. They're pretty standard. They get to be kind of cookie cuttered, and they just offer it to each of the individual institutions who want to use their software. So it was a little, I think they were a little taken aback, but I think we made some really good strides. We have an addendum to the master service agreement because that was the easiest way to help us track what was actually changed from the original. So to discuss some of those points, we were able to, on the section 12, which is the biggest portion of the liability that's noted, is to make sure that neither party, instead of one party or Olentangy, is responsible for having extreme damages. We also know that we put in language that says to the extent of Ohio law. PowerSchool is a company out of California, so they might not be as familiar with Ohio law, but Ohio law essentially says if you are a government entity, you cannot enter into a contract that has a hold harmless agreement, meaning that you have an open-ended litigation tool. It's not legal in the state of Ohio. So by entering in a contract as acceptable by Ohio law, it cuts the district's liability out. And we will make sure that we send a letter in writing to reiterate that to the companies, that is our understanding, and that's how we'll move forward with that. So that helps in that regard. And then we also worked with them to make sure that if there is an issue, that we go back to 18 months worth of fees paid that we could ask of PowerSchool. We originally had 12, and it says paid or payable. So it's not just a matter of what we've cut a check for, it's amount due or amount to have been due within that 18-month period, so you can collect the full breadth of fees that may have been available there. And those were the major components. There were other I would say soft wordsmithing items throughout the master service agreement that made Olentangy's perspective or point of view more favorable, cleaning things like they, just small pronouns, things like that throughout the language that helped make it softer for us, or put us on equal playing field with PowerSchool. They were very easy to work with, and we're happy to work through these language pieces in the contract to help us get to a point where we could bring it back to the Board of Education to meet those requirements. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have about these two particular items that are a little more in-depth, or anything else that we've brought forward this evening. Y'all are just ready to go home, aren't you?
I was probably prematurely thinking through the whole litigation issue, and if we were to financially benefit from participating in that lawsuit, would we then put money towards, like, the money that was refunded, would it go towards any drug treatment as a result of an opioid addiction from their?
My recommendation would be to put it in our 024 fund, which is
Okay.
the fund in which we pay for claims, so that if their claims arise from this, that it would be there to help support that cost.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going back up there.
Good, good. How about you?
Bill, do we have public participation?
Yes, we do have public participation. Mrs. Davis, I believe we have one.
We do.
We have one, so I don't know that we need to worry so much about the time constraints with just one, but if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind, please feel free.
All right, here we
Thank you.
go. This is from Angela Pigman, 9010 Emerald Hill Drive. Dear Board, thank you for your work during this particularly challenging time. My daughter is participating in CDL. While I heard many parents encouraging return to full-time, I believe families should have the option that works best available to them. We have higher risk adults in our household. My daughter bringing home COVID could have dire consequences for us. My daughter also has social anxiety. For her, not having to navigate shoulder-to-shoulder hallways has greatly reduced her stress level. Second, the CDC recommends later start times for high school. With CDL, high school students now have the opportunity to get much-needed sleep and will increase their productivity and engagement. Forcing CDL students to maintain the schedule of in-school students is not necessary. Please use this as an opportunity to implement later starts. I heard the reasoning that this was not fair to students doing in-person learning, as Mr. Rafe mentioned. None of this is perfect, and any opportunity to improve kids' lives should be considered. Third, I would like to know what the plan is for electives in the second semester for CDL students. My daughter is an artist and was devastated to learn all of her art electives were canceled. When we heard some electives wouldn't be available, we had no idea that nearly all would be gone. The one-sentence mention of CCP at the bottom of a page was not adequate for parents to realize CCP was really necessary. Fortunately, the CCP deadline of August 2nd was waived. However, now we are scrambling to get her enrolled in CSCC 3 days before classes start. We certainly realize the school is under enormous pressure to get classes scheduled. We need more clear and timely info on CCP options. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rafe, we have one discussion item this evening, and it is the Olentangy Local Schools Emergency Power Resolution.
Yes, always want to make sure we put something you're going to vote on as a discussion item, so you have this as a board action item. This emergency powers resolution is virtually identical to the one you've previously passed in the way, during the pandemic, just kind of extends because the last one expired. But again, given some of the decisions we may have to make in the future, they may be contrary to current board policy, so you're just giving the authority to the treasurer and superintendent that during this time, we can take any and all actions necessary to maintain educational programming for staff and provide safety for students, staff and students. So with that, I'll take any questions.
It does renew Like, so will this
Yes.
take us after the first
Right.
semester?
Well, it does, this one takes us through to the end of this
School year?
calendar
May
year
31st.
with an automatic renewal through May 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will take a motion to, a motion for the approval of Olentangy Powers Resolution. Do
So
I-
moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Teasel.
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wagner Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
When you're ready, Mrs. Hatfield, please present your treasurer action items.
Yes, please. I would like to present treasurer action items A through F for approval, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any questions?
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Wagner Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Rafe, your superintendent action items, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to recommend superintendent action items A through C for approval.
So move.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Wise. Please call the roll.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner Fiesel,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
That slight delay got me.
All right,
Thank you.
our next board meeting, I didn't even look. Is that-
2 weeks.
I know it's in 2 weeks, but I don't know the
I
date.
believe it's
'cause dates
September
mean-
10th.
The 10th. Thank you.
Mhm.
So, a friendly reminder, our next board meeting will be here on September 10th. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Wagner Fiesel,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes, we are
Thank you.
adjourned.